From equations to eternity, the scientist who found Allah. The laboratory was silent, save for the soft humming of the centrifuge. Dr. David Lawson adjusted his glasses and stared at the rows of genetic sequences on his monitor. For the world, he was a man of logic, an award-winning molecular biologist, a published author, a speaker at global symposiums. Yet inside, he was drowning in a silence no microscope could reveal. He was alone, not physically but spiritually. He felt like a molecule without a nucleus, floating, detached, purposeless. For years, David had believed in nothing but atoms, energy, and probability. Born to a secular family in Manchester, he had spent his life trying to decode the mysteries of DNA, assuming that all questions could be answered in the lab. But there were whispers in his soul, quiet, persistent whispers that science could not silence. It had started after his mother's sudden death. He had watched her take her last breath, and with it, all his equations evaporated. He had stared in her lifeless eyes and asked himself, where did she go? Her body remained, but she, the person who loved, laughed, cried, had vanished. What was the soul? And if it existed, where had it gone? These questions began to gnaw at him during sleepless nights. He found himself sitting on his couch, flipping through books he hadn't touched in decades. Philosophy, theology, comparative religion. None satisfied him, until one night, he stumbled upon something peculiar. A YouTube lecture titled, The Quran and Modern Science, Dr. Zakir Naik. He clicked it out of boredom, but what he heard stunned him. Verses from a 1,400-year-old book describing embryonic development, oceanic barriers, the expanding universe, long before any microscope or telescope existed. He blinked, rewound, watched again, and again. He found himself trembling. How can this be? He whispered. Days turned into weeks. He watched more lectures on cosmology, medicine, history, and the Quran. He read translations by Pickthall, Yusuf Ali, and Sahih International. Every time, he expected to find contradictions. But the deeper he went, the more the pieces fit. He remembered a verse. We will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth. Surah Fussilat 41:53. It was as if the Quran knew he was a scientist. It spoke to his mind and heart. But he feared. What would his colleagues say? What would the scientific community think if Dr. David Lawson became Abdullah Lawson? He kept his secret. One evening, while walking through a London alley on his way home, he saw something unusual. A homeless man, wearing tattered clothes, dirty face, yet he was smiling, radiantly. David was drawn to him like gravity. The man looked up and said, Salam alaikum. David blinked. You're Muslim? The man nodded. Alhamdulillah. I wasn't always. I used to be a banker. Lost everything. But I found Allah. Now I have everything. David sat beside him, shocked. You're smiling like you own the world. The man looked at the sky. Because I do. I own peace. That night, David wept. He envied a homeless man for his contentment, his certitude, his faith. The dreams began. First, he dreamt of a vast desert and a voice reciting, La ilaha illallah. Then, a man with a luminous face, wearing white, approached him. He didn't speak, just smiled. David woke up breathless. Who are you? He found a biography of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, in a local bookstore. The cover image, a soft artistic depiction, matched the man in his dream. He froze. He read the book in 2 days. He was stunned. The Prophet's mercy, his honesty, his struggle, his patience, his prayers in the dead of night. This is not a myth. This is real, he whispered. He began visiting mosques quietly. He would sit in the back during Jummah, pretending to be a researcher. But his heart was burning. Every time the imam said, Ya ayyul lidna amanu, he felt as if it was addressed to him. His nights became tearful. He would whisper into his pillow, God, if you are real, guide me. And one night it happened. He had just performed an online search, how to convert to Islam, when his apartment lights flickered and went out. He stumbled in the darkness. Suddenly, he felt an overwhelming presence, as if the air had become sacred, and a voice, clearer than any thought, echoed in his mind. "This is the path. Don't be afraid." He fell to his knees. With trembling lips, he uttered, "Ashhadu alla ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah." A wave of peace hit him like light flooding a dark room. He wept like a child. He wasn't alone anymore. The next day, he entered the East London Mosque. He asked the Imam, "How do I pray?" The Imam embraced him. "You're home, brother." He was given the name Abdullah, servant of Allah. His first salah felt like reconnecting with a forgotten love. His forehead touched the earth, and his soul rose to the sky. Months passed. He learned Arabic. Read the Quran in its original language. Every verse was like a love letter from the Creator to the creation. His colleagues noticed a change. "You seem lighter," one said. "I found gravity," Abdullah smiled. "The gravity of truth." He gave lectures now, not just on genetics, but on faith and science. When I study the cell, he would say, "I see Allah's signature." He published a paper, Genetic Harmony, Evidence of Divine Architecture in DNA. Critics scoffed, but many young scientists emailed him secretly. "Your story is my story." One day, a prominent professor challenged him during a seminar. "Science doesn't need religion. Faith is for the ignorant." Abdullah smiled. "Science explains the how. Islam answers the why. Why we exist, why we suffer, why we hope." The room went silent. One evening, while making du'a and sujud, Abdullah whispered, "O Allah, I chased atoms for years, but I only found you when I bowed to you." He wept for minutes. He was no longer seeking signs in the lab. He now saw them in every breath, every heartbeat, every whisper of the Quran. He had found his nucleus, his purpose, and his Lord. Abdullah stood before the mirror, adjusting his white kufi. It was a Friday, and his first khutbah as a Muslim guest speaker at Oxford University's Interfaith Dialogue series. The same university that had once awarded him the prestigious Thomas Rutherford Research Medal was now inviting him back, not as a biologist, but as a believer. The irony was not lost on him. As he entered the hall, murmurs stirred. "That's Dr. Lawson, right? He's Muslim now." Abdullah smiled gently and made his way to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I used to think I knew everything, until I realized I didn't even know myself." He paused. "For decades, I believed that molecules ruled the universe, that all we see, feel, and know can be reduced to mathematical formulas. I was wrong." A hush fell. He continued, "When I studied embryology, I marveled at the journey from a microscopic zygote to a fully formed human. But no one could explain the command behind the process. No textbook could answer who said to the cell, divide, become, beat, breathe." He glanced up, his eyes misty. The Quran did. He recited in Arabic, then translated. "And indeed, we created man from a drop of mingled sperm in order to try him. So we gave him hearing and sight." Surah Al-Insan 76:2. Gasps were audible. He closed the lecture with words that sent chills down spines. "I was searching for DNA. I found divine. I searched the nucleus. I found Noor. I studied matter. But I found what truly matters, Allah." After the seminar, a young student approached. Her voice trembled. "Sir, I'm a final-year biochemistry student. I've never told anyone, but I've been secretly reading the Quran. I don't know why. I just can't stop." Abdullah's eyes softened. "Maybe it's because Allah hasn't stopped calling you." Tears welled up in her eyes. "How do I know it's real?" He smiled. "Because when the heart recognizes its creator, it doesn't need proof. It feels home." She whispered, "Can I say the Shahada?" There, beside the science department walls, the call of La ilaha illallah echoed again. At night, Abdullah would lie in sujud for hours. Every sajda felt like rewinding the years of arrogance, disbelief, and darkness. Now, he wanted nothing more than Allah's nearness. Not the applause of conferences. Not headlines. Just al-Wadud, the loving. One particular night, as he finished his prayer, he received a phone call from an old colleague, Dr. Mark Spencer. Mark was renowned for his atheist debates. "I've been watching your lectures," Mark said coldly. Are you really serious about all this religion stuff? Abdullah took a deep breath, serious enough to cry over verses that I once mocked. Silence. Meet me, Mark said. Tomorrow. Same cafe we used to argue in. The next day, the two men met. The cafe hadn't changed. The smell of burnt coffee and old books still lingered. But Abdullah had. You look different, Mark said. Peaceful. But I don't understand. How can a man of science believe in unseen things? Abdullah sipped his tea. Mark, do you love your mother? Of course. Prove it scientifically. Mark frowned. Well, that's not the same thing. It is, Abdullah said gently. The most important truths in life, love, consciousness, right and wrong, are unseen. Yet we believe them. Islam doesn't contradict science. It completes the human experience. Mark's voice cracked. What if I want to believe, but I'm afraid? Abdullah touched his arm. So was I. But when you jump into truth, it doesn't break you. It carries you. Tears shimmered in Mark's eyes. I'll think about it. 2 weeks later, Mark entered Abdullah's apartment. His face was pale. My wife had a miscarriage, he said. Abdullah embraced him. I'm so sorry, brother. Mark collapsed onto the prayer mat. She cried all night, and all I could do was say nothing, because I don't believe in anything. But she kept whispering God has a plan, and I envied her. Abdullah handed him a Quran. Then start here. Months passed. Abdullah became a beacon in the scientific world, not because of his research, but because of his humility. He wrote a book titled Intelligent Design or Divine Decree, where he bridged the beauty of biology with the brilliance of the Quran. He began traveling to conferences across Europe, Asia, and America. But his favorite visits were to small mosques, where he would sit with children and teach them how to see the signs of Allah in a leaf, a cell, a drop of water. One child asked him, Uncle, what's the most amazing thing science ever showed you? He smiled, eyes twinkling. That Allah leaves signs in everything, even in people who didn't believe in him, like I was once. One night, Abdullah received an invitation from Medina University. They wanted him to present on Islam and the future of scientific inquiry. It was a dream. He stepped off the plane in Medina, the city of the Prophet. As he entered the Masjid in Nabawi for the first time, he felt like the atoms in his body were melting. His chest tightened. He walked toward the Rada, and there, he wept like a child. He sat near the green dome, whispering, Ya Rasulallah, I was lost, but your light reached even the darkness of my lab. Your truth touched a man who denied everything. And now, I testify, you are truly the messenger of Allah. He wrote in his diary that night, I have studied galaxies, but this dome, it feels like it contains the entire universe. Years went by. Abdullah aged gracefully. He now had a small beard, soft wrinkles by his eyes, and a Quran always in his bag. His fame was known, but he kept himself hidden from pride. One day, at a seminar in Istanbul, after delivering a talk titled Science Leads to the Threshold, Islam Opens the Door, he quietly returned to his hotel. And that night, while in sujud, he didn't rise again. He passed away with his forehead on the ground, whispering the words, Subhana Rabbil Allah. His janazah was prayed at Masjid al-Aqsa, where he had once cried upon seeing it with his own eyes. Thousands came. Many held up his book, his pamphlets, his old debates. Some were ex-atheists. Some were scientists. Some were just searchers of truth. Mark Spencer, now Muhammad Isa, led the janazah. Years later, students would ask, who was Dr. Abdullah Lawson? And the answer would always come. He was a man who sought truth in the atoms, but found it in the ayahs. If you're reading this, maybe Allah is calling you too. If this story moved your heart, don't ignore that spark. Learn about Islam. Open a Quran. Ask questions. Seek truth. And if you're ready, repeat the words that changed Dr. Abdullah's life. Ashhadu alla ilaha illallah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Welcome home. Deeninminute. Subscribe for more true Islamic stories that touch the heart and awaken the soul.